What is up, everyone? I'm Jack Slater, aka the Comic Outlaw. Yeah! Ah, man, oh man. This is a day for getting some work done, if you know what I'm saying. Ah, and you know that I do a little bit of this, I do a little bit of that. And yeah, you know that I like doing movie reviews. And this one I feel has gotten kind of overlooked. Came out in 1989. It's about shit that happened in 1938. And it has a bunch of great comedians in it, 3 generations worth. I'm talking about Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, and Red Fox. Now, if you don't know who Red Fox is, he had a very successful show called Sanford and Son. You probably heard that song. Anyways, he was the master of dirty jokes. These guys were all stand-up comedians. They became actors at one point. They all came together to make this movie. It was an Eddie Murphy movie, and it's a good story. Richard Pryor plays this guy named Sugar. Now, Sugar, he gets his name because he's real smooth. He's real sweet. You know, people love him. He's just one of those guys, you know, that's connected all the way through. And he ends up meeting this kid named Quick, played by Eddie Murphy's character. And the reason they call him Quick is because he has a quick temper. Quick to react, if you know what I'm saying. And yeah, Richard Pryor ends up adopting him after Quick sort of saves his life. And yeah, they become a team. And this is back in the glory days of, I guess, the mob, you could say, where bootlegging was in high times. Everybody was making money hand over fist. And yeah, this goes down in Harlem. And this is the black side of Harlem because things were segregated back in the day. There was a lot of racism. And Richard Pryor owns this club called Club Sugar Ray's, of course. And yeah, he runs it with his son. Now, this corrupt cop named Calhoun, who works for this other guy, or no, who Bugsy Calhoun, I should say, is the mobster. And he sends this guy named Phil, Officer Phil Cowtone, to collect money, and he basically gives them a real shit deal, you know, where they'll be giving up everything. They won't really have anything left for them. He's trying to muscle them out so he could take over. He could take over the booze and everything else, because this is a very successful club. And he has a competing club of his own. Basically, he has his own front man, who is a black guy, and he is the guy from Martin. He plays one of the neighbors. His name escapes me right now. He does a great job, too. There's a lot of good actors in this movie. It is funny as hell. Classic Eddie Murphy humor. There's also a fight between him and the lady of the house, Quick, and the lady of the house, Vera. And it is one of the best fights you'll ever see in your fucking life. I guarantee you, you'll laugh your ass off. It is just great. Richard Pryor is on point in this movie. I mean, all the comedians are just classic. So you get another look. That way you know what you're looking for when you... See, there's Red Fox right there. And I do love the setup. Everything looks classic gangster. I mean, this is the back in the day where they had class. And I'm talking like Rat Pack class. And God, I hate having to explain. If you don't know who the Rat Pack is, then you guys are missing out on the kings of cool. You know, like back when you wore a suit and tie, and that was a fashion back then. And everyone looks ghetto fabulous in this movie, I swear. It has that classic gangster look. Whoever did the costumes just did it right. The story is on point, and it goes back and forth between Richard Pryor character and Quick, and the situations they get himself into. Of course, Quick does get them into a situation, or makes the situation worse, I should say. And Richard Pryor's character, Sugar, has to figure a way out of it. And Sugar just always has a plan. Sugar is the man with the plan. I do love, and this is spoilers, la 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 la, when there's a point where they get busted, his club gets busted, and Sugar has a little bit of money. He actually pays for everyone's bell, pays for a personal car, and then sends them flowers with an apology note. I mean, that's why they call him Sugar, because he's a real smooth, sweet motherfucker. Just like that. I love the way they say it. I love the way they talk in this movie. Everything about this movie just has class written all over it. I mean, it's funny as hell. It's got some good action scenes, good story, great comedians. I mean, like, I know comedians talk about being the GOAT. Like, I've heard certain comedians talk about that, oh, possibly the GOAT. You know, these men are GOATs. And just in case you don't know, that means greatest of all time. I mean, these three comedians got to definitely be in the conversation when it comes to that. If you know classic stand-up. Although Eddie Murphy only so much stand-up before he went into acting, and he just stopped. Richard Pryor is a god when it comes to that. You got to put him in the conversation when it comes to a GOAT. Eddie Murphy too. I mean, these guys are the kings of funny. And yeah, this movie has the gangster flair with a lot of comedy in it. And it's just one of those movies where like you get hooked right away. Yeah, the story does stretch out a bit. The music is awesome. The music just gives you that old school, like you're there in 1938. I do believe the music was done by Herbie Hancock. He's done other movies and it's just real classic jazz. You know, like blue, not like the beginning, the foundations of blues and everything. Really cool stuff. The movie soundtrack really does help enhance the movie. Like I said, the costumes, the storyline. I was surprised that this movie didn't make as much money as I thought it did. It was considered a flop because it didn't make huge Eddie Murphy amounts of money. It recouped its money and then some, but it didn't exactly break the bank. From what I read, this actually got popular with the video age. And this tended to happen back in the day, where something wouldn't necessarily be popular in the theater, but when the video came out, it just sold like gangbusters, or it rented out like gangbusters. And maybe because movies were expensive as they are now, you can only see so many movies, but you could rent some. You guys ought to know this was the foundation for streaming. You got to think back in the day, there was no Netflix, there was no Peacock, there was no Pluto, there was none of that shit. There was no internet. Imagine that. Imagine there's no cell phones. It's easy if you try. No internet or Twitter. You had to go outside to see the sky. Imagine life in the 80s. Using a pay phone. Yoo-hoo! Alright, yeah, But yeah, this movie is just super cool. Great Eddie Murphy movie. If you're a fan of Eddie Murphy, or if you want to get into the old school Richard Pryor movies, this is a great Richard Pryor movie too. This has a little bit of everything, and the comedians glue really well together. Sometimes there's comedians that just don't glue together. There's other comedians like Robin Harris, the late great Robin Harris. He was in the first House Party movie. He's in this movie. Like I said, there's a lot of good actors in it. They have a few lines here and there. This movie is a great blend, and I was surprised. Like I said, it didn't do better in the theaters, considering it was an Eddie Murphy movie. But I definitely think that it was one of his best movies. It's a nice story, nice blend of comedy. I keep harping on the way everything looked, but it has a real authenticity to it. So yeah, I do recommend Harlem Nights. Like I said, if you're a fan of Eddie Murphy and you've only seen a few of his movies here and there, this is a classic one where Eddie Murphy was getting his footing in the business. You know, he's already made a few successful movies, and I thought this one was a success all the way through. It's worth a watch, and classic Richard Pryor. And if you want to get introduced into more like the older stand-up with Red Fox, Richard Pryor, you want to find out who these guys are, this is a nice little introduction to that old school stand-up actors too. Like I said, it has a little bit of everything. And so you can take a look one more time. Harlem Nights. And you know who I'd be? I'd be Jack Slater, you know, the guy that's bringing you all the movies and still saying them prayers in the moonlight. You know how it is. And you know what I'm going to say next, right? I'll catch you on the flip side. Yeah.